안녕하세요. 지난주 비트코인 서울 2025 컨퍼런스 진짜 열기가 대단했죠?
네, 맞아요. 날씨도 더웠는데 그 안은 뭐 더 뜨거웠던 것 같아요.
정말요. 혹시 바쁘셔서 못 가셨거나 아니면 그 현장의 분위기, 그 이야기들을 다시 한번 좀 되짚어보고 싶으신 분들 계실까 봐 저희가 오늘 자리를 마련했습니다.
아, 좋은 생각이네요.
시작하기 전에 혹시 그 세계의 파도가 몰고 오는 하나의 미래? 라는 리포트 보셨어요?
아, 네네, 봤죠?
그거 아직 안 보셨다면 저희 이야기 듣기 전에 한번 보시면 좋을 것 같아요. 오늘 저희가 다룰 내용하고도 연결되는 지점들이 꽤 있거든요. 생각할 거리가 많고요.
맞습니다. 오늘 저희가 특히 스매시파이 백훈중 대표님 세션, 비트코인 매수부터 셀프보관까지 자동화를 통한 대중화 실현, 이걸 좀 집중적으로 파보려고 하는데요.
네, 저도 자료 봤는데 이게 그냥 기술 얘기가 아니더라고요.
그렇죠. 우리 현실이랑 딱 붙어있는 이야기였어요.
맞아요. 그 시작부터가 되게 인상적이었는데 뭐랄까 계속 오르는 원달러 환율 있잖아요.
네, 요즘 심상치 않죠?
그리고 삼성전자 주가는 몇 년째 좀 제자리 걸음 같고 또 서울 집값은 엄청난데 지방은 소외되는 느낌? 이런 정말 피부에 와닿는 문제들.
네, 이런 것부터 딱 짚고 넘어가니까 듣는 분들도 하셨을 거예요.
네, 이거 내 얘긴데? 뭐 이런 느낌. 공감대가 확 생기는 거죠.
그렇죠. 단순히 그냥 경제 지표만 늘어놓은 게 아니라 이창용 하는 총재님이 0%대 성장률 가능성 언급하신 거라든지
네, 그것도 나왔죠.
네, 경기 부양도 쉽지 않다. 이런 좀 어두운 전망까지 덧붙이면서 이제 국가만 바라볼 게 아니다. 개인이 대비해야 한다. 이런 메시지를 던진 거죠.
맞아요. 약간 위기의식을 좀 느끼게 하는.
네, 그러면서 질문을 던지는 거죠. 그래서 우리는 어떻게 해야 할까? 이렇게요.
그래서 백 대표가 딱 제시한 핵심 주장이 우리 스스로 바뀌어야 한다. 이거였어요.
아, 네, 그 부분.
비트코인은 뭐 잘 갈 거니까 중요한 건 우리 자신이다. 그 유명한 짤도 보여줬잖아요. 부자들 습관이랑 우리 보통 사람들 습관 비교하는 거.
아, 네. 운동하고 공부하고 사업하는 부자들 습관. 넷플릭스 보고 술 마시는 그런 거요.
네, 그거요. 보면서 좀 찔끔했는데, 하하. 삶의 태도를 바꾸자는 메시지가 되게 강렬했어요.
그게 바로 비트코이너 정신하고 연결된다고 보신 거죠.
비트코이너 정신?
네. 그냥 안정적인 직장 월급 여기에만 기대는 게 아니라 그 오픈소스 개발자들처럼요. 스스로 뭔가 가치를 만들고 주체적으로 살아가려는 태도.
주체적인 삶?
네. 그 사토시 나카모토가 스스로를 총명하고 깨어 있으며 중심이 되는 존재라고 불렀다고 하면서 우리도 그렇게 되자. 뭐 이런 이야기였어요. 상당히 좀 철학적이죠.
네, 맞아요. 되게 인상 깊었어요. 그럼 이제 구체적으로 뭘 해야 하냐, 현실적인 방법? 이걸로 넘어갔죠.
그렇죠. 액션 플랜이 나와야죠.
그게 바로 스태킹 세트. 비트코인을 꾸준히 모으는 거.
네, 꾸준히.
감정에 막 휘둘리지 말고 그냥 예전에 우리 적금 들듯이 자동으로 꾸준히 사는 거. DCA라고 하죠. 정기 분할 매수.
맞아요. 가격이 오르든 내리든 규칙적으로 모이는 게 중요하다.
네. 근데 여기서 그냥 사는 게 끝이 아니라고 했어요.
아, 그렇죠. 한 단계 더 나아가서
이해하고 투자해야 한다. 이 점을 되게 강조했죠. 그 예시로 MSTR, 마이크로 스트래티지 주식 투자 사례를 들었잖아요.
네, 비트코인 많이 가진 회사로 유명하죠.
네, 단순히 이게 오를 거다 이렇게 기대만 하는 게 아니라 레버리지 효과라든지 특히 그 변동성, 가격 변동폭 자체를 이해하는 게 중요하다.
맞아요. 변동성을 이해하고 활용해야 한다. 심지어 옵션 시장의 내재 변동성, 통계적 변동성 이런 좀 더 깊은 얘기까지 했어요.
네, 좀 어려웠지만 중요한 내용이었어요. 이건 듣는 여러분께도 질문을 던지는 것 같아요. 나는 내 투자를 제대로 이해하고 있는가 하고요.
정확합니다. 그리고 마지막 퍼즐 조각이 나왔죠.
마지막. 셀프 커스터디. 내 비트코인 내가 직접 보관하는 거.
네, 이게 중요하긴 한데 솔직히 처음 하는 분들한테는 그 시드 구문 관리하는 게 부담이잖아요.
맞아요. 그 12개 단어, 24개 단어 잃어버리면 큰일 나니까.
그렇죠. 백 대표도 그걸 알아서 좀 현실적인 대안을 이야기했어요. 뭐 시드 구문 없는 스마트폰 앱 지갑을 쓴다든지.
그런 것도 있군요.
네, 아니면 다른 기기를 추가로 등록해서 혹시 폰을 잃어버려도 대비할 수 있게 한다든지. 처음부터 너무 완벽하게 하려고 하지 말고 단계적으로 접근하자. 이런 조언이었죠.
네, 그래야 지치지 않고 계속할 수 있으니까요.
맞습니다. 그래서 결국 백 대표가 제시한 ABC or Bitcoin. 이게 딱 요약인 거죠.
ABC.
네, automate, 자동 매수, boost, 이해를 통한 투자 증대, 그리고 custody, 안전한 자기 보관. 이 세 가지.
아, 딱 정리가 되네요. Automate, Boost, Custody.
네, 이걸 통해서 스스로 자산을 관리하고 키워나가자. 이런 메시지였습니다.
네, 오늘 쭉 다시 짚어보니까 백훈종 대표 강연은 결국에는 우리 스스로가 사토시 나카모토가 되자 이런 외침처럼 들려요.
그렇게도 볼 수 있겠네요.
단순히 비트코인이라는 기술을 활용하는 걸 넘어서서 지금 우리가 처한 경제적 어려움 앞에서 그냥 좌절하고 있을 게 아니라 스스로 길을 찾고 만들어가는 그런 주체적인 태도가 필요하다. 저는 사실 그 메시지가 가장 크게 와닿았어요.
저도 동의합니다. 기술적인 어떤 해결책 제시랑 삶의 태도에 대한 철학적인 성찰이 아주 잘 어우러진 강연이었다고 생각해요. 단순히 돈 버는 방법을 넘어서 우리는 어떤 존재가 되어야 하는가? 이 질문을 던진 게 좋았습니다.
맞아요.
오늘 저희 이야기 들으신 여러분께서는 나만의 사토시 나카모토가 되는 길은 과연 뭘까? 한 번쯤 생각해 보시는 것도 좋지 않을까 싶네요.
네. 오늘 저희가 나눈 이 이야기들이 여러분 각자의 길을 찾는데 조금이나마 어떤 영감이 되었기를 바랍니다. 다음에 더 흥미로운 분석으로 찾아뵙겠습니다.
네, 감사합니다.
Okay, let's crack open today's deep dive. For those of you who couldn't make it to Bitcoin Seoul 2025, or maybe you were there and just, want to revisit some key moments, we've got something pretty special lined up.
Yeah, it really was quite something. We're going to zone in on one session that really stuck with me. It was Baekun Jong, the CEO of Smashbee. His talk was called Realizing Bitcoin Popularization Through Automation, from Purchase to Self-Custody.
Right.
So our mission today basically is to pull out the absolute biggest takeaways, the most important bits, and maybe some surprising facts from that presentation, give you the essence of it.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember the vibe, actually. It was just after lunch, things were restarting, and they had these, dynamic ad videos playing about Seoul's youth.
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
And it set this kind of interesting stage for what turned out to be, a very frank talk.
Definitely. So if you're looking for that quick way to get up to speed on the main message, the practical stuff from that session without having to sift through everything, you're in the right place. We'll walk you through it.
Let's do it.
Okay, so what really grabbed me right at the start was how Baekun Jong didn't just immediately talk Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. He began by painting this pretty stark picture, really frank actually, about the economy in Korea right now.
Yeah, that was unexpected.
It was, wasn't it? But it really set the context for everything else he said.
It did. And what was interesting was how he tied that local Korean situation into much bigger economic ideas, even global ones. He kicked off with the $1 exchange rate.
Okay.
And he pointed out this pretty clear trend since 2020. Basically, the rate's been climbing.
Mm-hmm.
He used the term higher lows, meaning every time the one weakened, it didn't recover as much as before. The lowest point kept getting higher.
Got it. So a steady decline overall.
Exactly. And he argued that this points to a weaker Shane. One, yeah, but more fundamentally, a drop in national competitiveness. It suggests capital is, flowing out.
Not just a number, but a sign of economic health.
Precisely.
Oh.
And it wasn't just the currency he focused on.
Right. He brought up Samsung Electronics stock, which, for Korea, that's huge. It's like a barometer for the whole economy.
Totally. And he pointed out that, despite all the hype, all the talk about 10 change, that's Samsung hitting 100,000 won a share.
Which everyone thought was a sure thing for a while there.
Right. When it was hovering around 98K. But he said, look, it's basically been flat since 2020. Stagnant. And he sees that stagnation as another clear sign of capital leaving the Korean market. Even the biggest players aren't immune.
Wow.
He even mentioned knowing people who are still kind of stuck, having bought near the peak. It makes it very personal, doesn't it? Shows the real impact.
Definitely. And then he pivoted to real estate, which is always such a hot topic, especially in Korea. What was his take there?
Yeah, and here he highlighted this, massive gap. It really showed the economic split. He talked about these super high-end apartments in Seoul, their values just soaring. He gave a specific example, Bampo 1 Bailey.
Okay.
Get this. A 20 billion won lease, but the place sells for 50 billion won.
50? Wow.
So that's a 30 billion won premium just for owning it, above its actual use value. But then you look at provincial areas, and prices are totally flat, even for brand new places.
Big difference.
Huge. And he linked this back to Preston Pish's ideas about asset premiums. You know, people lining up for assets they think are scarce, pushing prices way beyond intrinsic value.
While other perfectly good assets get ignored.
Exactly. It's that flight to perceived safety or scarcity. It's happening right there in the housing market.
So currency, stocks, real estate.
Well,
What about the overall picture, the GDP and stuff?
yeah, and that's where it got, well, pretty sobering. Maybe the most impactful part. He brought up the Korean bank governor confirming near 0% GDP growth.
Oof, 0%.
Yeah. And he stressed that for a middle-income country like Korea, one that's not, at the absolute top tier yet, zero growth isn't just some abstract figure. It means quite directly that wages stagnate. For individuals, like your pay isn't going up if the whole country isn't producing more value.
Right. The pie isn't getting bigger.
Exactly. He said even if they dropped interest rates, getting things moving again, really stimulating growth, would be incredibly hard.
That's definitely quite a bleak outlook. But he didn't just leave it at the numbers, did he? I remember him getting quite personal.
He did, and that's what made it really land, I think. So relatable. He shared pretty openly that he'd been married 8 years but didn't have kids yet.
Wow, okay.
And he directly connected that, well, that reality, maybe that difficult choice, to the economic anxiety he sees all around, that deep uncertainty about the future in Korean society.
So showing how these big economic trends actually affect life decisions, family planning, everything.
Exactly. It wasn't just charts and graphs. It was about people's lives, their hopes, their futures. It really brings home the personal stake you have in all this.
So yeah, what does this all mean for you listening? He painted that pretty serious picture of the big economic forces at play. But, and this is what I liked, Baekhyun didn't just leave us there feeling hopeless, right? He's shifted gears. He turned it towards, okay, so what can we actually do about this? Our own economic situation.
Exactly right. And that was the crucial turn. He framed Bitcoin not just as, something to invest in, an asset, but as a real catalyst for personal change, for transformation.
Interesting.
He's pretty clear. He believes Bitcoin itself will succeed, no doubt. But the key is that we as individuals need to change our mindset, change our actions, proactively. It's not about just waiting for Bitcoin to save the day. It's about us becoming, well, different, taking agency.
That reminds me of that meme he put up, the rich day versus average day. I think many of us probably recognize ourselves a bit there.
Oh, that was brilliant. Yeah, it showed the contrast, right? The rich habits exercise, studying, finding mentors, building things, versus, well, the other side. Netflix, maybe drinking, gaming.
Guilty is charged sometimes.
Yeah. Well, what was great was his honesty. He kind of confessed. Yeah, I lean more towards the Netflix and drinking side myself sometimes. Admitted, it's hard work to live like that rich ideal consistently. That honesty made the whole message feel, less preachy and more human.
Yeah, definitely. And then he tied this into what he called the Bitcoiner lifestyle. What was that about?
Right. He suggested that often people who really get Bitcoin, the true Bitcoiners, tend to live differently. They often have this freer, more self-directed way of life.
Yeah.
Aren't necessarily stuck in a traditional 9-to-5, and importantly, not always following parental or societal expectations.
Like the open source developers he mentioned, Jimmy Song.
Exactly. People like that. Building serious wealth independently, often by creating value outside the usual systems. It kind of poses the question, doesn't it? Is there some deep link between really adopting Bitcoin and choosing this more, entrepreneurial, self-reliant path? Maybe even a bit countercultural.
Yeah, that's a fascinating thought.
He hinted that this lifestyle, even if it looks unstable to, say, traditional Korean parents, is actually how many Bitcoiners are quietly building real, sustainable wealth.
And what about that other meme, the really simple one? World is falling apart, keep stacking Bitcoin. Seems almost too simple.
It does seem simple, but he presented it as a core insight, a fundamental truth many miss. He pointed out that even among the millions of crypto investors in Korea, most don't really grasp this basic strategy.
They're too busy trading.
Yeah, exactly. They're looking at charts, trying to time the market, buy low, sell high, totally missing the bigger idea, which is, amidst all the chaos, the economic weirdness, maybe the most effective thing you could do is just steadily, calmly accumulate Bitcoin. Stack those sats. Don't overthink it.
It's counterintuitive for a lot of finance folks, I guess.
But he argued it's profound.
He then went deeper into the philosophy, talking about Satoshi Nakamoto, but his interpretation was different.
Yeah, that was a really unique part of the talk. He dug into the name Satoshi Nakamoto itself, using Korean linguistic roots, which I hadn't heard before.
Oh, interesting. What did he say?
He broke it down. Satoshi he interpreted it as meaning clever or wise from the Korean character jumcham. And Nakamoto, he linked to a fundamental or central being, jong.
Okay.
So putting it together.
He suggested it means something like a clever, awakened, fundamental, and central being. And he believes that's Satoshi's real message to us, a call to action.
To become that kind of person.
Exactly. To become self-reliant, enlightened, people who take charge of their own lives, individuals, just like Bitcoin itself is, decentralized, sovereign, fundamentally strong. He sees it as mirroring the asset.
He literally framed it as the path to becoming a Bitcoiner and becoming rich. Not just owning Bitcoin, but embodying its spirit. Becoming that clever, awakened being.
That's a powerful idea. Becoming the change you want to see, almost, reflected in the asset. But okay, that's quite philosophical. For you listening, the big question might be, right, but how? How do I practically do that with Bitcoin? How do I become this awakened being? And that's where his ABC Your Bitcoin framework came in. Very actionable.
Yes. The ABC Your Bitcoin. He really hopes that catches on, he said, because it's so simple to remember. It's the 3 core pillars for Smashbee, their whole approach. So A is for automate.
Automate. Okay.
This is basically dollar cost averaging, DCA. We talk about it a lot. The idea is just simple. Buy Bitcoin regularly, same amount, same schedule, without letting emotions or price swings mess with your plan. Just, stack those sats consistently.
Like setting up an automatic transfer to a savings account, kind of. That old school discipline.
Precisely. He used that exact analogy, like those savings accounts back in the 80s. People just set it up, money went in every month, boom, saved automatically.
It takes the emotion out of it.
Totally. And he mentioned their service, Smashbee, obviously automates this. And they even add little Satoshi rewards for sticking with it, like a little bonus for being disciplined.
Nice. Okay, so A is automate. Makes sense for building long-term. What about B? Boost. That sounds a bit more active, maybe riskier.
Yeah, B for Boost is interesting. He used MicroStrategy, MSTR, as the prime example here. He explained why its stock is so popular and why it sometimes even outperforms Bitcoin itself. It's not just leverage, though that's part of it. It's about using Bitcoin's volatility.
But isn't the volatility how
Michael Saylor called MSTR's volatility a jet engine, right? Beek explained that big players, institutions, they aren't just buying MSTR stock. They're doing sophisticated things like options trading around it. Comparing implied volatility versus statistical volatility, basically betting on how much the price is expected to swing.
Okay, that sounds complicated.
It is for most people. But the core idea is they harness that price movement, the swings, to generate extra returns. They use the volatility. And Smashbee, he mentioned, has a product designed to tap into that same principle using Bitcoin options and volatility for potential returns. But key point, it's a centralized platform offering.
Gotcha. So leveraging the market's energy, not just holding. Okay. And C, ABC custody. That's the big one for many beginners, right? The scary part.
Oh, absolutely. The biggest hurdle, maybe. He really hammered this point. He talked about the common problems people face when they first try self-custody. Scary stories from his YouTube channel viewers.
Like what?
People taking photos of their seed phrase, the actual keys. Or giving the phrase to family members who don't really get how critical it is.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Leads to hacks, or just losing the Bitcoin forever. His point was, pushing complex self-custody onto newbies too soon can backfire badly. They end up losing everything.
So his solution isn't just get a hardware wallet immediately.
Not necessarily, not for absolute beginners. Smashbee's approach, their C, is about simplifying custody initially. They have an app-based hot wallet designed specifically to ease people in.
How's it simpler?
Get this. No seed phrase needed right away. The keys are stored on your phone securely. But, and this is the clever bit, you can register other devices as recovery options.
Ah, so if you lose your main phone?
Exactly. You have a backup phone, maybe tablet, sitting safely at home. You use that registered device to get your Bitcoin back. It solves that huge, what if I lose my phone fear.
That sounds much less intimidating. A good first step.
Totally. It lowers the barrier massively, makes self-custody feel achievable. And he was clear, this is the starting point. Once you're comfortable, understand the basics, then you can graduate to the more robust cold storage, your cold cards, Trezors, Jades.
It's a progression. Makes sense.
Yeah, it's a guided path. So, automate your buying, boost using volatility smartly, and ease into custody. That's the ABC. He believes by doing this, you're not just managing your Bitcoin better, you're actually living out that Satoshi Nakamoto ideal he talked about. You're accelerating hyper-Bitcoinization yourself.
So bringing it back to the listener, What's the real takeaway here? It feels like it's bigger than just these ABC steps or one company's product. It links back to that whole personal responsibility thing, doesn't it? That call to become more awake.
I think so, yeah. Connecting the dots, this whole deep dive for me really drove home that Bitcoin's future isn't just about the tech or the price charts. It's really about us, the people involved. It's about that internal shift, that individual transformation. His message seemed to be that as we become more self-reliant, more resilient, more proactive, embodying that clever, awakened, fundamental being, he described that's what actually fuels Bitcoin's success and adoption. It suggests hyper-Bitcoinization isn't just something that happens to us. It's something we actively build, starting with ourselves.
And that really leaves us with the final thought, doesn't it? The challenge, maybe. If hyper-Bitcoinization really does depend on us, on you listening, becoming more self-directed, more resilient, more, well, clever and awakened, then the question is, what's one small, concrete thing you can do today, right now, to start embodying that ideal in your own life? Something to really chew on.